Hey guys, welcome to my Lovecraft Country breakdown and recap. I'm going to begin with a very brief spoiler-free review of the episode before jumping into a full spoiler breakdown and recap. So I'll let you know when the spoiler part begins, so if you haven't watched the episode you can go and watch and come back. So I've been giving letter grades to the episode so far, and this one's going to be the lowest grade so far. This one is a B, perhaps a B-. I haven't decided yet. It's fine, perfectly enjoyable. I didn't hate it. A B is still a good grade, but I wasn't gripped by the story being told this time. This episode had a very Indiana Jones feel, which makes it sound awesome, I know. But to me, what this meant was it was really predictable. Now, predictability isn't always a bad thing. In the last episode, I literally predicted the end of the episode within 3 seconds of the episode starting. But the journey to that end was so interesting to me that I was totally sucked in by the story, despite knowing for sure how it was going to end. This one, whenever they encountered like a puzzle or a mystery, I knew how it was going to conclude, and I stopped paying attention. Even watching it a second time for taking my notes for this video, it was hard to focus during those moments. Like certain scenes, I didn't care how they did certain things. I was just more like, okay, solve this puzzle so we can get on with the story. There was also a bit more humor in this episode, along with like humorous music stings. Like this episode very much wore its intention on its sleeve. They even reference adventure novels, which, you know, is what Indiana Jones was based on. And they were just very obviously going for a certain feel. And they achieved it. And I liked it. It was familiar. It was comforting. Just not amazing. Anyway, to get more into that, I need to get into spoilers. So I'll do that now. If you haven't finished the episode, you should go watch it. Come back later. We begin this episode with Montrose, who is listening to the radio go on about, like, dangerous communists. He's drinking and he's sobbing, he's looking at old photos. I guess he's still processing what he's been through and George's death. In the flashes of his memories that we hear, there's clear indications of violence and beatings. I'm not sure if these memories are things that happened to him or things that he did to Tick, because from what I understand, there's violence on both levels there. He then starts reading from the book of rules that George found, and yeah, it is some misogynistic bullshit. Seriously, okay, it reads, Adam named, Eve fucked, God brought forth monsters, monsters devoured, God smites Eve. I don't even know. Like, not only is it disgustingly misogynistic, it doesn't even flow. Like, there's nothing poetic about it. It's just nonsense. We hear what I think is George's voice in his memory saying, yeah, take it, give it to Tick, to protect the family. But Montrose, drunk off his ass, just burns it, which is not what George said to do, so yeah. Smart decision there. And then we've got Christina driving up to Letty's house to the dulcet tones of Rihanna singing, Bitch better have my money. And I'm back on the damn, I love these music choices. It's so awesome. Letty greets her warmly.
What the fuck are you doing here?
But it turns out there's a protective mark that the exorcist put on the door, and it bars Christina from entering the house, so that's a surprise bonus. Christina asks about the exorcism, and Letty starts putting things together and realizes that the money came from Christina, not her dead mom, who didn't have any money in the first place, and that Christina must want something in the house. She asks if it's something to do with Atticus, or Tick, and Christina warns her to not assume that everything is always about the men. This, combined with the weird misogyny non-poem in the book, tells me that this episode is going to be a bit more about gender than race. Okay, so she says then that she wants the orrery, and Letty asks the same question as me.
What the fuck is an orrery?
What the hell's an orrery? Apparently, it's a model of a solar system, and it's that one that Hippolyta found in the last episode. Anyway, Letty just tells her to go, and then we switch scenes to Hippolyta. And it seems like Hippolyta not only found the orrery, she took it. I don't even know if Letty knows that she's got it. Like, Letty, I don't think even knew it was in her house. She's on the phone, Hippolyta, with her dad, asking something about a system with two suns, which I'm not sure why, because I don't see two suns in this orrery, but maybe I just don't know how to look at an orrery. Man, that is a hard word to say. I do not like this word. His daughter, Hippolyta's daughter, is hanging out with Bobo, the boy who asked in the last episode, asked the Ouija board if his trip was going to be good. And okay, so apparently this boy is supposed to be Emmett Till. And yeah, that is heartbreaking. Like, that is really dark. Anyway, someone in this store asks her about the orrery, and she explains it, but apparently this one's broken. There are gears inside, and she can't get to them. Letty later on storms into the colored library and finds Tick researching and confronts him about trying to shoot Christina, because Christina told her about it. He informs her about the spell that Christina has that means that he couldn't kill her. And he says that he's sticking around until he figures out how to stop Christina and keep Letty and his family safe. He does tell her about the missing pages, and she deduces that that is why Christina was asking about the orrery. And I hate this word. Why are there so many R's in this word? Anyway, she realizes that it must have something to do with the missing pages. Titus, who's the founder of the organization, also has pages hidden in a secret vault. And maybe Tick can access it because he's got Titus's blood. Letty tells him he should probably ask his father, because Montrose likely did all this research before. That's how he ended up in that place in the first place. And Tick checks the books that he's researching now and sees that, yeah, his dad was the last person to take them out. So, Letty for the win. He heads to the bar to find his dad and finds that Letty got there first. Montrose tries to scare them off, saying that, they've already got one lodge after them. What about the other 34? And Tick quite smartly goes like, how do you know that there are 34 lodges? Montrose dissembles, but they know he's lying. And he finally caves, so he says he thinks he knows where the vault is in Boston. Then we get a super weird scene that I don't really know what the point of it is. Maybe it will be revealed later. I don't know. Christina is playing hide and seek with some random kids on the street. I'm not sure what street, not sure why, not sure who these kids are. It's just weird. She says it's her first time playing. She's having a blast. But then the police come and get her, and she's taken to somewhere, which I think is just another lodge, and she sees that pleasant racist cop from the last episode, or was it the one before that? Last episode. And he questions her about why she's in his city unannounced. She tells him that she went to the Winthrop house to ask, the dead guy for the orrery, and was surprised to find Negroes there. So, yeah, she's playing both sides here. Interesting. She says that the orrery is the key to unlocking a time machine. Okay, that's just insane. And while she's asking, she's looking into this side room where we hear somebody in there moaning in pain. This whole situation is creepy and super unpleasant. And it turns out that neither of them, neither Christina or the racist cop, have been initiated into this creepy organization, but both of them are vying for power. Letty is packing up the car for the trip to Boston. Hippolyta and Dee are going because, fun road trip. Obviously, Montrose and Tick are going, and then this other guy just latches on as well. Ruby heads to the department store. She's got her resume in hand, and she finds when she gets there that they've already hired a black person and knows that they won't hire another one. And yeah, I know this feeling. Not from my personal life or anything, thank goodness I do not live in this time, but from all of the movies and TV that I have watched. Usually, there is a cast of white people and then one black person for diversity. And there won't be more, unless maybe a love interest for the one black person in the cast. This is one of the reasons why I am so happy to see the much more organic diversity in the Wheel of Time cast. And yeah, this is a weird aside in this recap for anyone who happens to find this video without knowing my channel. But okay, back to Wheel of Time. I feel like if it was the forced diversity, as all the haters keep saying, it would be like what you're seeing here in this department store. One one non-white person just to prove that they could. I've seen that too many times. To this day, you still see this. But the fact that it is more random, it permeates the entire cast, it makes it feel much more natural. It's just a result of casting a wide net and getting who they thought was best for the job. Okay, sorry. Back to Lovecraft, what this video is about. Ruby is understandably upset to have her dreams just sort of dashed like this. Anyway, back in Boston, they visit the museum, and Montrose seems to have an in with one of the security guards. Hippolyta takes Dee to the planetarium and points out a comet that she named in some sort of naming contest, but a Swedish girl got the credit for naming it because they didn't want a black girl to win. Sad story, but it seems really disconnected from this particular episode. Maybe it will come back later. Then we follow Tick and Letty, to the Titus Braithwaite wing of this museum, and we hear the guide giving this awful speech about how all the artifacts in this wing were given to Titus in exchange for him teaching them the ways of civilized man. It's so freaking gross. Okay, then the guy who just sort of hopped on their trip tries to stir up some shit by kind of outing Montrose to Tick, so he seems lovely. Montrose gets the guard to let them in through the back of the museum at night, so they just need to get into the vault. That night, back in Chicago, we see Christina drive up to some house, and then the creepy white guy, who I'm going to give a name to finally, his name is William, he comes out and he beats up some guys who are following Christina. So, okay. He survived the house collapse too. Back at the museum, our crew, they do some Indiana Jones stuff to find the entrance to the vault, and then they're in. They are under the museum now, and there are all these tunnels running off in different directions. Titus reads some engraving on the ceiling about tides rising, so I knew there was going to be some kind of water booby trap. This whole thing, it's such Indiana Jones vibe, and it only gets stronger as the episode goes on. Anyway, okay, through, logicking things out, they pick a tunnel and start walking down it, which they probably could have just gone through the tunnel in Letty's basement, but we learned later that Letty didn't know about that tunnel, so fine. Back in Chicago, at a bar, Ruby is singing her blues and drinking through her sorrows, and William is there. He's buying her drinks and he's flirting pretty hard. Back in the tunnels, just switching back and forth, they come to this wide chasm with a plank of wood that's serving as a bridge, and once again, this is Indiana Jones. That's what we're watching here. And here we also have a moment that just it jumped off the screen at me and took me out of the show for a minute. Tick is tying a knot around Letty's waist to hold her as she crosses the bridge, and she asks about the strength of the knot. Montrose says this knot came from his ancestor, who was an enslaved man in charge of tying up horses. It was the use of the term enslaved man. Now, in current writings and speech about slavery, I really like this terminology. It reminds me of the person first term shift. I'm not sure what to call it. Term shift, whatever. That happened in my field of study about 10 years ago. This means that instead of saying that, you have a learning disabled child, you say is a child with a learning disability. The idea being that the disability is not the child's identity. It isn't the main thing about them. It's merely one aspect of who they are. The same here goes for, enslaved people. Being a slave is not all that they are. They were men and women and children. Being enslaved was something that was done to them, not their identity. But the reason this took me out of the show is that I don't think this was a term that would have been used in the 50s. For some reason, modern music, totally fine for me, but modern language feels off. But okay, back to the scene. This whole scene, it's one of those that, well, at least for me, I knew everyone was going to make it, but it still stresses me out. The plank is too narrow. Everyone is just walking on it or running and jumping. Nobody is scooting on their bellies, which is what I would be doing, and it was driving me crazy. There's a flying, axe booby trap thing, and then the bridge begins to disappear. It's all anxiety inducing, but I knew they were going to make it, 100%. There was no doubt in my mind. There's this scene, this moment where Tick goes back to get his dad, and once again, Letty's yelling just cracked me up.
What the fuck is happening over there?
It's not quite as funny as that scene in the diner, but it made me laugh out loud. The bridge keeps disappearing, and they make it to the other side, but there's a door with the combination, and Montrose remembers that stupid misogynistic non-poem from the beginning and uses that as a combination, and it lets them in to a room with water on the floor. So that's going to flood. Again, 100% predicting what's going to happen here. Back in the bar, Ruby is pouring her heart out to William, and William is giving her these longing looks, and she tells him it ain't happening, and so of course it happens. And I gotta say, I love that this curvy, plus-sized woman got a super sexy sex scene. Like, the sex scene that Letty and Tick got was perfunctory. It wasn't sexy at all, but this one is, like, it's luscious, you know? And on a rewatch, there is some weird shit that goes down here. Like, literally, William drinks Ruby's blood in this scene. She cuts her hand and he drinks her blood. And he's also got some weird ram's horn scarring going on his chest. But, okay, whatever. Sexy, sexy times happen. And then we're back in the tunnels with, of course, now waist-high water. Knew that was going to happen. Tick confronts Montrose about how he knows way too much about this organization, which it's called the Sons of Adam, by the way. I'll just use that from now on. And Montrose finally confesses that George had given him the book back in the first episode, but that he burned it. They start to fight it out, and Letty walks away from them right into a dead body floating in the water. She recognizes it as one of her neighbors that went missing, and yeah, she didn't know about the bodies in her basement, so that's confirmed here. Still not sure how that happened, I guess. Magic? I don't know how they ended up in the basement, but okay. Anyway, they find the elevator to Letty's house. Tick tries to send Letty and Montrose up in the elevator because it's getting too dangerous, but Letty, like, ain't having it, saying, like, it isn't getting dangerous. Hell, she died already, so Tick isn't the center of the universe. So, you know, here we hear that what Christina said to her at the beginning is obviously getting to her a bit. She starts swimming through the tunnels and they follow her. They find the vault and it's got a decomposing human arm coming out of it, so that's great. Pretty sure that arm belongs to the previous owner of the house. His ghost did seem to be missing an arm, if I remember correctly. They remove the arm, and then Tick puts his arm in, and the lock mechanism clamps down on his arm, and his blood opens the lock. They enter a room full of desiccated corpses and artifacts. Letty finds the scroll of pages in the hands of one of these corpses and goes to take it, and the corpse starts to come to life. And again, I got total Indiana Jones vibes from this. It appears to be a horribly painful process. There is yelling and contortions, and Tick, Montrose, and Letty just stand there and watch instead of running and screaming, so that's where they and I differ. I mean, there are other ways, but this is a big one. The corpse becomes more lifelike, you know, the bones begin to fill out with flesh, and the process, you know, goes on. When they're fully back to life, when the corpse is fully back to life, they begin to speak in Arawak. And somehow Tick can understand them and translates for the others. Tick gives the Arawak person a cloak to cover up. And here I'm just going to say that the Arawak person, whose name is Yahima, says that they are two-spirit, both male and female. And we saw that evident in their body when they were naked. But well, the characters mostly use the female pronouns when talking about them. It's understandable given the time period that this in, and of course the presence of boobs. But I'm going to try and stick to being gender neutral, but just a heads up. They tell how Titus came to their island looking for someone who could read the language of Adam, like the pages in these books, and they helped him. Yahima, you know, had no reason to not trust Titus, because, you know, why would they? He slaughtered their family, then brought them back to this room to, like, be with their dead relatives, so, you know, Titus seems like a peach. Tick says he's sorry for what happened, but he needs their help to stop others like Titus from hurting his family. Yahima says that, you know, Tick is not guilty for the sins of his ancestors, but they don't know him, and they're not going to help. Montrose decides to just take the pages, and when he does, it sets off yet another booby trap. The room begins to flood, so they all leave, including Yahima. They make their way to the elevator, and when they escape the rising waters, Tick and Letty begin to kiss. but they're interrupted by Yahima, who opens her mouth and begins to scream, and it's an unnatural scream. So Tick punches them in the face, knocks them out, screaming stops, the elevator rises. We switch to Hippolyta and Dee, who are driving home in the car. Dee wonders the very logical question of how the others got back to Chicago without the car. So I guess they called them and told them that they were there. I don't know. She's doodling, Dee is doodling in the map book or the atlas, and Hippolyta sees that it is George's old atlas. And she sees Devon County circled and decides that she's gonna go and get some answers. So, yeah. Now I wish she knew about the monsters, because I don't want her taking Dee anywhere near that stuff. Back at the house, we learned that Titus had turned Yahima into a siren so that they wouldn't be able to speak if ever they were able to, escape the vault. They've decided that they're going to try and teach Yahima English so that they can write down the language of Adam. Montrose then has a touching moment with Tick, telling him, he's a good man. And then he goes into the room with Yahima, apologizes, and then slits their throat. The end. So yeah, that was shocking. Like, the ending felt so much out of nowhere that when I was rewatching the episode for these notes, I had forgotten it, because it doesn't, it just comes out of nowhere. It shocked me just as much the second time as it did the first. It makes sense. Like, it's when I say it comes out of nowhere, it comes out of nowhere with the plot, but it makes sense with Montrose's character, given that what we know about him trying to keep everyone from learning about the magic. But damn, I was looking forward to seeing this exploration of a non-binary person in the show, but I don't know. Maybe they're not dead, Like, they were a corpse when we first met them, so who knows? This show is crazy in a good way, but, it's still crazy. They could come back, maybe, but I doubt it. Okay, so now we come to my favorite and least favorite moments. Let's get the Lesbianomics app ready. Okay. So for my least favorite moment, there really is no contest. It's the weird hide-and-seek game that Christina plays with those kids. I just do not know what the point of that was. Maybe later episodes will make it seem less silly, but yeah, that's what it felt like to me. It was silly. So, okay, if I put this into this app, Christina plays hide-and-seek with some random kids. And processing. Okay. So for this one, the app says that Christina playing hide-and-seek with some random kids is living alone and finding someone else's clothes in your laundry. Yes! Yes! That's exactly right! This has happened to me. It is weird and confusing and kind of unsettling. And now for my favorite moment. This one's a bit harder for me to pick because, to be honest, while I enjoyed this episode, it's not a standout episode, and it kind of doesn't have standout moments. It's enjoyable, just not incredible, But okay, the scene that left the biggest impression on me was Yahima coming to life. It is creepy in a very good way. Like, it's the perfect level of creepy for me. It would terrify me in real life, to be sure, but on my TV screen, I'm able to watch it full sound, no covering my eyes. I can imagine and empathize with the terror, but I'm not terrified myself, if that makes any sense. Okay, it's the perfect level for me. So if I put this into the app, Yahima coming to life, we get, and this moment is the cool side of the pillow. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's always going to be awesome. I'm not exactly sure how it relates to this scene, but it does feel like the right level of good thing. So, okay, I'll end this here. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And please join my Discord and let's discuss this show or the Wheel of Time or other nerdy things. And check out my Patreon as well if you want to support me. Links to both in the description below. And as always, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.